That didn't make a great impression.
The views expressed by John A. don't necessarily reflect the views of the channel in terms of religion, and I feel very sorry if we've offended any Christians.
Yes, like hell I do.
On December 29th, 2019, 4 individuals showed up at a hospital in Wuhan, China. All had pneumonia and worked in a particular seafood and live animal market, which was enough of a coincidence to pique the interest of local health experts. 2 days later, Chinese authorities alerted the World Health Organization of a new, potentially serious respiratory virus. And you have probably heard about this virus by now. Here's the thing, though. The emergence of a new disease can be a really uncertain time with a lot of unknowns and a lot of misinformation. So here is a hopefully helpful breakdown of what we do know about this new virus and why there is no need to panic.
Breaking news tonight, the tense showdown at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. American forces firing tear gas into the crowd on the second day of violence. Pro-Iranian protesters setting fires, trying to scale the walls. Hundreds more U.S. troops deploying to the region. President Trump threatening Iran. The Ayatollah taunting him back, saying, "You can't do anything." Tonight, the rising tensions and what the president is saying about the potential for war. Also tonight, President Trump reportedly scaling back his promised crackdown on vaping, which products will be outlawed under the new ban, and why critics say it does not go far enough. The moment caught on camera, the woman grabbing Pope Francis, pulling him toward her, the Pope swatting her hand away. Tonight, his apology.
Tonight, a SARS-like virus spreads again. More cases, more places, more deaths.
China takes a dramatic new step while the World Health Organization decides to wait. What's Canada doing?
As long as we keep an eye on it, we should be well prepared.
Nurses and doctors on the front line show us how they're preparing.
Why Ronna Ambrose won't be the next Conservative Party leader.
On this Tuesday night, another step closer to getting home. When Canadian citizens in China could finally be flown out. Why only some permanent residents will be allowed to leave, and what the WHO wants done now to stop the outbreak.
On this Thursday night, anxiety mounts over the spread of COVID-19. From a major market meltdown to new travel bans.
This virus is not influenza.
One country takes swift action.
The risk of a global pandemic is very much upon us.
And the U.S. reports a new mysterious case.
On this Monday night, new rules at Canada's border. Who's now banned and why Americans are still allowed.
Now is the time to take this particular step.
As the COVID-19 crisis escalates. The message to Canadian travelers.
If you're abroad, it's time for you to come home.
Plus, the markets tank again. And from self-isolation to testing for the new coronavirus, we get answers from the experts.
On this Saturday night, the number of COVID-19 cases climb across our country. Quebec is now the epicenter of the virus in Canada, but news signs physical distancing is making a difference.
There are sacrifices we're all making, but it's beginning to work.
The new restrictions Ottawa is imposing on domestic travel. Watching and waiting. Hundreds of Canadians on board a coronavirus-stricken ship sit in limbo. One death every 17 minutes. The alarming numbers in New York as the U.S. struggles with surging cases. Plus, a famous British inventor swaps making vacuums for ventilators. Country roads. And how a group of friends across the country is filling time with Canada's favorite pastime.
On this Wednesday night, preparing for a surge in patients. New hospitals, old facilities being repurposed. Why the next 2 weeks will be critical for Canada. New details on the federal wage subsidy, which businesses are eligible, when they'll get help, and who is still waiting. Mounting tales of heartbreak.
She died alone. We didn't even get to say bye to her.
Plus toughening measures across the U.S. An evolving debate, is it worth wearing a face mask in public? And the detective work of contact tracing. It is vital. Plus, Canadian researchers racing to find treatments. On this Thursday night, plans to address the many failings in Canada's care homes. The proposed solutions.
Enough is enough, really.
Plus, the help wanted and needed right now in Quebec. And who's being blamed for a spike in New Brunswick's COVID-19 cases. A heartbreaking consequence of this pandemic.
I lost my boy.
The toll it's taking on people struggling with addiction. Mounting mayhem in Minneapolis. Fury explodes over the unarmed black man who died after an officer kneeled on his neck. And a reality check on Canada's new gun ban. Why critics say it's missing the target.
On this Sunday night, celebrating Canada's Indigenous communities. A day to honor and reflect.
We are not more likely to be criminals. We're just more likely to be over-policed.
As an investigation continues into how healthcare workers treat First Nations in the ER. The chair of a Canadian university resigns over controversial tweets. Plus, Trump boasted he'd be giving a campaign speech to 1 million. But the crowd fell flat. And crossing the stage in different ways to mark the important milestone of graduation.
On this Thursday night, another sobering benchmark. 100,000 Canadians have tested positive for COVID-19. We dig into the demographics and the new app aimed at controlling the spread. A former American national security advisor takes aim at his old boss.
I don't think he has the competence to carry out the job.
The new book the U.S. president doesn't want you to read. Eradicating Racism, the tragedy that was a catalyst for change in 2 Alberta communities. And she was a voice of reassurance and resilience. On this Wednesday night, the young and the fearless.
A message to the young people, you think you can't catch COVID, you can catch COVID.
The anxiety over more Canadians letting their guard down as the weather heats up. Who will be allowed in and who will be banned? The complexities and the politics of reopening Europe's external borders.
Happy Canada Day.
Bonne fête du Canada, tout le monde. Mais comme toujours, on s'adapte et on s'arrange. So let me give a huge shout out to the amazing volunteers here with the Ottawa Food Bank, spending the day harvesting fresh vegetables for families in need. And Justin and I and the kids, we're so happy to be able to lend a hand. And right across the country, we're celebrating inspiring people like everyone here today, people like them, but also so many of you who have turned a challenge into an opportunity to unite as citizens and as a country.
This year is unlike any other, but it's certainly not the first time that our country has celebrated today during tough times. 80 years ago, our parents and grandparents marked this day almost a year into the Second World War. That weekend's edition of the Toronto Star told them that they were living in circumstances such as no one imagined would come to pass. Well, 8 decades later, that sounds pretty familiar. Maybe you're able to spend today with family and friends, something I don't think anyone will take for granted after this spring, but maybe that's not possible for you. Maybe you're celebrating without someone you love, a mom who's a frontline worker, a friend who hasn't been able to come home, a loved one you've lost to this terrible virus. The last few months have been hard, and on this Canada Day, we need to continue to be there for each other.
Well, this is definitely a Canada Day that will be going down in the history books. As we've seen with many other events over the last few months because of COVID-19, it has changed the way we celebrate. But today, we're still marking Canada's 153rd birthday together, just in a virtual space. Gone are the days of thousands huddling at Nathan Phillips Square. And forget about lining up and waiting for fireworks at Ashbridges Bay. Canada Day 2020 taking on a different feel.
For the first time ever, Toronto's going virtual for Canada Day.
Like Easter, Victoria Day, and Mother's Day, celebrations have changed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And as city officials continue to encourage physical distancing, special occasions have moved from the streets to the World Wide Web.
COVID crowd control.
Didn't think it was going to be this crazy, but it's absolutely insane.
Long weekenders get too close outdoors, and in Quebec, it's growing indoor gatherings that doctors are calling dangerous.
It can just spread wildly.
250 people can gather inside, some with masks removed. Trouble with Canada's new COVID alert app.
It needs to work for all Canadians.
Why so many say they're shut out. The salmonella outbreak widens.
I just threw everything out.
Why some onions are making people sick. Speaking out against Beijing. Is there not a chance that you could be spirited away in the middle of the night to a prison in mainland China?
Yes.
Good evening, I'm Ian Hannamansing. Tonight, the Conservative Party chooses its new leader.
Aaron O'Toole is the new leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Congratulations, Mr. O'Toole.
Another record-setting jump in COVID cases in Manitoba.
This is kind of that wake-up call a bit to Manitobans.
Canada has now crossed another COVID-19 plateau, 150,000 total cases. For a country at a crossroads, it means more pressure for everyday Canadians, for health officials, and for political leaders.
Protecting people will continue to be job one as we move forward. And one of the best ways to do that is with a safe and effective vaccine.
And so tonight we look at the latest on Canada's vaccine strategy, including major new acquisition deals and the government's financial support strategy as the CERB ends. We'll look at how hospitals are bracing for a potential onslaught and how provinces are preparing for a second wave while trying to resist a second lockdown. Good evening, I'm Ian Hannamansing. Tonight, a plea from the Prime Minister as the country's top doctors warn things could get much worse.
We know what to do, we know how hard it is, but we know it works.
Justin Trudeau returns to his front porch to ask Canadians to take action.
If you don't need to, don't leave your home.
His emotional new request to try to prevent this.
Our ICU resources will be completely overwhelmed by the end of December if nothing changes.
Our doctors are standing by with their take on today's news. Plus, Canada's biggest city in lockdown.
We are now teetering on the edge.
Ontario introduces the strictest measures since the first wave. And meet the people behind the numbers.
The breathing and all that's tough, but the isolation is really tough.
I'm passionate about this election because I feel that there are a lot of people that are seeing the negative effects of the current person in power. We can't sit back anymore.
Heather Peterson is an American living in St. Catharines, Ontario. Just 3 months ago, she helped create a brand new chapter of something called Democrats Abroad Canada. Her goal? Get as many of the 600,000 Americans on this side of the border to vote for Joe Biden.
What's on the ballot for me this time around is voting for women's rights, black rights, gay rights. I'm just seeing this dark cloud over everything. I wish that there was something brighter in the world again.
Good evening, I'm Adrienne Arsenault.
And I'm Andrew Chang. Tonight, a dire prediction. Canada could see 60,000 COVID cases a day by next month. CBC News has learned Dr. Tam has briefed Canada's leaders. We have the breaking details.
Also tonight, millions of Canadians are living under new restrictions as provinces desperately try to beat back the second wave.
These measures, they will have to be tough.
The right to shop is not as important as the right to life.
We need to take more action now.
Cases surge, provinces clamp down. What's changed where you live?
And Quebec offers a Christmas contract.
It gives us hope. This is something that I think it would be well worth it.
Get together, but stay home afterwards. Will that work?
Good evening, I'm Neil Kirksall. Ian is away tonight. Shipments of the first COVID-19 vaccine are now in Canada. Where the doses are now and where they'll go next.
The general feeling is excitement. People are really looking forward to this.
The first shots could be administered tomorrow, a relief for those who are first in line.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with new information tonight about COVID-19 vaccines and Canada's plan to roll out the largest mass vaccination program in Canadian history. Health Canada could approve the first vaccine in 7 to 10 days. It's likely to be the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. That's the first doses, enough to inoculate 3 million Canadians, could arrive from Pfizer in early January or sooner. It's the vaccine that must be kept ultra cold, so Pfizer will deliver it directly to 14 locations across Canada, where special freezers will be in place to store it.
Good evening, I'm Adrienne Arsenault.
And I'm Andrew Chang. Tonight, Canada's top soldier steps aside. Allegations of sexual misconduct against the chief of the defense staff just 1 month into the job.
General MacDonald was the person in charge of eradicating the very behavior he is accused of.
And the government's vetting process called into question yet again.
Vaccinations ramp up in hard-hit Quebec as some of the most vulnerable finally get their shot.
We're very happy to get the vaccine. We see the light at the end of the tunnel.
The growing concern over new variants found close to home.
The B1526 is a variant that we are tracking.
Where it comes from and why it's being looked for now. Tonight, a critical assessment of Canada's pandemic readiness.
The Public Health Agency did not address long-standing issues.
What needs to get fixed before the next one? Also tonight, the federal carbon tax gets the top judicial stamp of approval.
The Supreme Court's decision is very unfortunate today, but it is a reality that we must deal with.
At Issue is here with its take. In parts of Ontario, calls for looser restrictions even as COVID cases climb.
Hospitalizations are increasing and ICU numbers are increasing.
Tonight, on a long weekend when so many Canadians would gather, emotional pleas from those on the front lines to stay home.
Wave 3 is a different disease.
We are seeing our hospitals really full to the brim.
Everyone's burnt out. Everyone's tired of this.
As Canada surpasses 1 million recorded COVID-19 cases and more Canadians become critically ill, doctors on the front lines speak out and call for change.
We need to get the vaccines to those people who need it most right now.
Plus, the worst outbreak in the NHL yet in Vancouver.
You have to be vigilant when it comes to this stuff because it can happen to anyone.
It's raising concerns about a variant taking hold in BC as the province marks a record-breaking weekend. And William Shatner, it's a real honor to speak with you.
Is it?
William Shatner on 70 years in the biz and turning 90.
Last time I looked, it was 60. And you know what 60's like.
Yeah, a little too close for comfort there, William.
On this Wednesday night, Alberta's fast-paced plan to reopen.
It means the best Alberta summer ever.
The details, the backlash, and the impact on the greatest outdoor show on earth. Pandemic response failures. The Auditor General on how Ottawa dropped the ball. While the British Prime Minister's former advisor delivers a scathing review of the UK pandemic plan.
This is like a scene from Independence Day with Jeff Goldblum saying the aliens are here and your whole plan is broken.
Going with the grain.
It's becoming a really sexy proposition for many farmers.
Oat milks rise to the cream of the crop of dairy alternatives.
Tonight, growing calls for accountability on residential schools from inside and outside Canada.
We're asking you to do the right thing.
Plus, new developments in Kamloops. Restaurants are finding it hard to hire staff. There is a lot at stake.
If you like someone, we need to hire them right away.
A pandemic talking point for parents, kids doing school at home.
Burnout is very real. I think my students have experienced it.
And Canadian rap artists take the stage.
Try to expand what the possibilities look like for rappers in this country.
Are they finally getting their due? And these are pictures taken today over Lytton, BC, after days of record-setting temperatures, the highest ever recorded in Canada. Fires have destroyed much of the village. And tonight, families forced to flee their homes are now working to find loved ones scattered in the evacuations. The cause of the fire under investigation, but what is certain, on a day usually set aside to celebrate the country, part of it is burning.
In the last 24 hours, 62 new fires have started in British Columbia.
Some of those fires so intense, spreading so rapidly, plumes were towering more than 10,000 meters into the sky. About 1,000 people fled the area around Lytton, and tonight, the fire that destroyed so many homes is still growing.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with the hot, dry conditions in large swaths of this country and how the drought is affecting the food supply. Farmers are being hit hard. This map shows drought conditions as of June 30th. Yellow, which snakes across much of the country, means abnormally dry. Red is extreme, and dark brown is exceptional drought conditions. The driest regions are in southern Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Several municipalities have declared states of agricultural disaster. Crops are failing, pastures are bone dry, and there isn't enough feed for cattle. Some farmers are selling off entire herds, and they know prolonged heat waves are becoming more common. Even if you're not a farmer, it will affect you.
Yeah, 7 minutes past 3, Kitty's phone went off and my phone went off, and we were told we were in imminent danger of a tornado.
On this Sunday night, Team Canada makes a splash in Tokyo. Canadian women swim to silver, winning Canada's first medals of these Summer Olympics. The race to vaccinate. Health workers target communities with lower vaccination rates as COVID cases surge south of the border. Wildfire waiting game. Officials report fewer fires burning in BC while keeping a nervous eye on the weather.
Breaking news this Monday night. America's longest war is over.
I'm here to announce the completion of our withdrawal from Afghanistan.
The international pressure on the Taliban to let Afghans escape safely. The chaos of Hurricane Ida.
I've seen damage, but not like this.
Where the storm is heading next. Greenhouse gas emission goals, how Canada's target compares to other countries, and how the Conservatives' plan stacks. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau has just arrived in Montreal after another volatile campaign stop in Ontario this morning. Trudeau was making his first big climate announcement of the campaign, but once again it was delayed and interrupted by crowds of angry protesters. David Aiken is following the Liberal campaign. David.
Well, Robin, week 3 on the campaign with the Liberals began pretty much as week 2 ended, with a horde of loud, foul-mouthed protesters trying to disrupt the campaign.
Freedom! Freedom! Freedom!
Liberal leader Justin Trudeau is the lightning rod of their hatred.
He is a coward.
Trudeau was the target of obscene chants from a crowd where many brought young children.
Shame on you!
Police were forced to physically remove one woman, though neither she nor anyone else was arrested. But unlike Friday's event in Bolton, Ontario, when a similar group of protesters forced the Liberals to cancel their plans out of concerns for the safety of the participants, the Liberals carried on with Sunday's event.
The Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau.
Thank you, Brian.
Even as protesters tried to shout him down.
Right alongside you.
And yet, asked if his team will change the way they campaign to reduce the chance of his security detail or others from getting hurt, Trudeau seemed defiant.
Canadians won't back down, and neither will I.
The protest overshadowed Trudeau's announcement, this one on climate change. There were no new commitments or promises, just a restating of initiatives announced in the 21-21 budget or elsewhere.
Green jobs are good jobs and good careers. That's why a Liberal government will keep investing in clean industries that power our future, grow our economy, and protect our environment.
South African scientists have detected a new coronavirus variant, and C.1.2, as it's called, has them worried.
A little table.
That's because, according to a study, it contains many of the mutations associated with the most concerning variants the world has yet seen. But at the same time, the World Health Organization said on Tuesday that C.1.2 does not seem to be spreading.
This has been a Sleeping Cat production 2021. Shh.